Hello again. Last week, I had the great privilege of attending a conference where, at Oxford University, actually, I am here in Plymouth in the UK. So last week, I attended this conference where my long-term mentors and teachers, the relationship researchers and experts, Drs. John and Julia Gottman, they were there speaking about one of the most challenging moments a couple can face, infidelity. And they talked about how to navigate the process of the rupture of it, that impact on a relationship, and the repair of the relationship. And so I thought, while it's still fresh in my mind, I'd share it with you because it reminded me of not just how painful it is, but actually the skills and the involved in putting it right, and it can be put right. It's one of those things that most people think where there's infidelity, well, obviously that means the relationship's over, it's done, it's dead. And of course, that's not always the case. So, but it is true that for many couples, the betrayal of infidelity, it does feel irreparable. But the Gottmans, they offer a roadmap that can help couples not only to heal from the pain, but also to rebuild their relationship on a much firmer foundation. So just to get on with it now in this video, infidelity is often viewed as a relationship ending event, but according to the Gottmans, it doesn't have to be, and I would say that's true in my experience as well. Couples can emerge from this difficult period with a deeper emotional connection even. Um, and if they're dedicated and honest and take a structured approach to healing, this can be achieved, a better footing. So based on their extensive research, the Gottmans have outlined 3 phases of recovery that offer a clear path to healing and rebuilding trust after an affair. And the 3 phases are Attone, Attune, and Attach. And I'm just going to go over each of those with you. So for those of you who are navigating this painful kind of situation, I want to share what I learned from the conference and explain how these 3 phases can guide you and your partner through the process of rupture and repair towards a healthier, more resilient relationship. So looking at phase 1, Attone. So that is about rebuilding trust. And this phase really it's about rebuilding the trust that the betrayal has shattered, because infidelity does shatter trust, and it is difficult and it does take time to rebuild, but it can happen. So at this stage, the unfaithful partner must take full responsibility for their actions, and both partners must work towards repairing the emotional rupture caused by the affair. So during this phase, the unfaithful partner's goal is to acknowledge the pain they've caused and demonstrate genuine remorse. This isn't just about saying, I'm sorry, but it's about understanding the depth of the hurt and being willing to listen to the betrayed partner's emotions. So, in my experience of working with couples where there's been infidelity, often the unfaithful partner thinks that after the first few days and after some I'm sorry's, that, right, well, we need to put that behind us now. And if the wounded partner has, anything to say, that is frowned upon, like, so, but I'll say more about that in a minute. So the Gottmans emphasize that the unfaithful partner does need to fully be fully transparent and patient and allow the betrayed partner to ask questions, to express their anger, to share their feelings of loss and sadness and hurt and betrayal, because rebuilding trust in this phase does require all of that to be processed by the wounded party. It requires transparency and openness. And for some couples, this might mean checking in more often, you know, letting your partner know where you've been, where you're going, and providing reassurance about whereabouts and activities. If you're going to be held up or be a bit late, to let them know. Um, and while it can feel a bit uncomfortable and even invasive, and it can feel like controlling and unnecessary, but actually, if you're going to repair this rupture, it is necessary in the early stages of healing to help the betrayed partner to feel safe again. If you want to rebuild trust, this is what is needed to rebuild trust. So, as tricky as this phase may be, the Gottmans reminded us that validating the hurt and creating space for the emotional expression of the hurt is critical for the healing process to begin. So, with this foundation of honesty, openness, empathy, moving forward is possible. And I usually use this phase to bring some stability back to the marriage. And I encourage 3 months of following and committing to therapeutic coaching, because the relationship is usually sufficiently unstable that the wounded partner will often feel like calling it a day and leaving. So it does take time to stabilize things, and that's happens in this atonement phase. So moving on, phase 2 is attunement, and it's about reconnecting. So once the situation has stabilized, we move to the next phase, which is attunement. And the focus of this is about rebuilding emotional intimacy and connection. Now, I have to say that many of the couples that I have seen, and I have seen hundreds, maybe thousands, over the last nearly 4 decades. It's a lot of couples that I've seen. And I would say probably more than half of them they didn't have emotional intimacy um, and real connection before the infidelity. They um, they shared a bill, the bills. They shared a home. They shared a bed. They had sex together. Maybe some lovemaking in there, but actually they did not have what I would call real emotional intimacy and connection. And but they thought they did. And so I'll say more about that in a moment. So this phase is about moving beyond the affair to understand why it happened and how to prevent a similar rupture occurring in the future. So attunement is a skill. It is a skill to be learned. And let's face it, they don't teach this at school. And, you know, your parents were from a former generation when actually emotional distance was a bit more the norm, especially here in the UK, which everything's a bit stiff upper lip, and where, you know, the British culture can be a bit aloof. So attunement to each other and emotional intimacy is a skill to be learned, and it involves learning to communicate openly and empathically and transparently, and with some ease. Now, not everybody can do that. It's a life skill, really. So infidelity usually happens when a couple has become emotionally disconnected and they didn't notice that was happening. Because when couples get together and they've been together for years, that whereas in the beginning they were learning about each other, their likes, their dislikes, their hopes, their fears, their wants, and their wishes. As time goes on, especially after there's children, they get into the logistics. What time will you be home? Oh, can you pop in the shop and get a pint of milk? All that kind of thing. And what are we having for dinner? There's no longer that sharing of your inner world with each other, because there's jobs to do and children to be picked up and all that kind of stuff. So all that inner world stuff tends to get shared with the people at work or the people outside. The leisure kind of conversation. Oh, did you watch that series last night? Did you see that movie? Did you read that book? Oh, yes, it was good, wasn't it? And people tend to share more of that with the outside world rather than with their partner, but they don't realize that there is a disconnect happening with the couple relationship. So the Gottmans emphasize that couples do need to explore what was it that was missing in the relationship before the affair occurred. Well, usually the wounded partner is stunned and shocked and hurt, and had no idea that there was an affair going on. Um, and that may be because they were, carrying a lot of responsibility and stress. So it's not about fault or blame, but they just felt secure enough in the relationship and thought it was okay. And that's probably because the unfaithful partner didn't actually really discuss it or identify that there was a disconnection happening. So we'll forget about the fault and blame before the affair. So the questions that you need to ask yourself, and it's worth making note of this and having the conversation with each other. Was there a lack of emotional connection? And without blame and without fault finding, just as a matter of exploring, was there a lack of emotional connection? And were there any unmet needs that led maybe to resentment or the disconnection? Because it really is important for both partners to understand what went wrong in the relationship's emotional landscape. Often after there's children get ill, sick, or they don't sleep well, or they disturb them as a couple. Parents find themselves moving to different beds, to different rooms so they can get sleep. And actually, things can get very disrupted, and that can go on much longer than is helpful or useful to the relationship. So during this phase of attunement, couples are encouraged to identify those kind of relationship vulnerabilities. Like I say, not from the point of view of finding fault, but just recognizing, yes, that was an area of vulnerability. So what gaps might there have been that contributed to an emotional distance? And you finish up, you can become more like housemates um, than a romantic couple. So you do need to explore the vulnerabilities that contributed to the affair without being defensive or offensive. Just have a conversation, not defensively to just get it out of the way, but actually an exploration is an exploration. So make the time together, sit down where you won't be interrupted, and sit down and relax and have a cup of tea or a glass of wine or whatever it is that you do to relax together, and have that conversation. So the other thing that I suggest, and it's something I learned from the Gay and Katie Hendricks, who are also world experts on relationships, and that's the having a daily temperature reading. So if you don't know what that is, check out my video on the daily temperature reading. You'll find it on YouTube. And also the weekly business meeting, which is 1 hour, and it's a set business meeting with a proper agenda. Check out the video on that as well. So these two mechanisms are really, they're short, they're sweet, they're easy. You know, if both of you are working, you can do the daily temperature readings 5 or 10 minutes, and the weekly business meeting is 1 hour, and they are two mechanisms to start building connection, reconnection, to get it to re-established. And don't think, oh yeah, we know how to do that. Watch the videos and do it that way, because there is a way that works. And couples can learn to discuss complex topics without blame and defensiveness, and those two mechanisms get you back reconnected. So the Gottmans recommend using what they call a softened startup when bringing up sensitive subjects, and that involves approaching the conversation gently rather than accusing the other person and being offensive or defensive. So both of you need to practice empathy, not just the the offending partner. It's both of you need to be practicing this to learn the art and skill of attunement with each other. So both partners must strive to see the situation from the other partner's perspective and work together towards understanding each other's emotional experiences. Um, so it calls for intention and attention. So in this phase, the couple begins to rebuild emotional intimacy, and if they haven't really had it established, to begin to establish improper emotional intimacy in the first place. And it does require vulnerability, and it does require honesty, um, and it requires putting your guard down. So therefore, if you're being defensive, you're not allowing yourself to be vulnerable. So both partners need to share their fears, their needs, their desires. So it's useful for each of you to keep note of these things, and keep a comms book between the two of you to make notes of things. Because reconnecting emotionally after infidelity can feel very risky, and it's, well, for both parties, but it's essential for creating a relationship that's deeper and more resilient than before, and strong enough that recurring infidelity is not something that happens. So as challenging as this phase can be, it is also a turning point. And the Gottmans explained that this is where couples often rediscover their emotional connection and reframe their relationship, which really needs to have moved on. And so it's reconnecting and rediscovering the connection, but actually building on that and taking it forward in a more mature way, and understanding that both partners have a role in maintaining that bond. That is the offending partner and the offended or wounded partner. Both of you are responsible for this. In phase three is about attachment, rebuilding connection and intimacy. So the final phase The focus is on creating a new relationship based on trust, emotional connection, and intimacy. And intimacy, particularly emotional intimacy, is not just about penetrative sex, or it is about heart to heart connecting. And it's where a couple rebuilds that emotional bond, which is what real intimacy is. Look, there's people all over the country and all over the world who are having sex with each other, but there's no intimacy in it. And conversely, there are people who have a very intimate relationship where there's no sex. I'm just saying that the connection, the ongoing connection, is about the art of being vulnerable and knowing what you what what you feel and being able to share that. And actually, uh, after addressing the emotional issues that led to the affair, couples can work on creating rituals of connection that strengthen the relationship. So the daily temperature reading is a ritual of connection. It's short and sweet and starts your day off connected together. Watch the video. And the weekly business meeting is a ritual of connection. And there can be other little rituals of connection, like when the children go to bed and you wind down for the evening, that you, well, what Alan and I do, we have candles in the room, and we light the candles. And when the candles are lit, the phones are off, and we are present for each other. They are little rituals of connection. So whether it's spending quality time together, maintaining maybe the two strategies I've mentioned, or weekly date nights, or simply checking in with each other throughout the day, these rituals are really essential for fostering ongoing connection and intimacy. So coming back to, one of the things that is badly affected by infidelity is physical intimacy. And it's a critical part of this attunement phase. So for many couples, it's difficult to rebuild sexual intimacy after an affair, as it's often tied to feelings of betrayal. And the wounded partner can't help thinking and feeling anytime there's intimate touch, oh, did he or she do that with him or her? um, when both partners feel emotionally safe, they can slowly explore physical closeness, but it needs to be phased in when both of you are ready for that. Developing a future vision reflecting a stronger, more resilient relationship helps to, and actually in the development of the future vision, um, it helps to establish more emotional connection and intimacy, and a willingness to be more um, vulnerable. So this phase is all about building a new life together. The old relationship with its vulnerabilities and disconnects is in the past now. So what emerges is a new relationship, and one that's built on a more profound understanding, and emotional closeness and renewed trust. Hearing the Gottman speak about infidelity and how couples can recover from such a profound rupture was incredibly inspiring. They're a great couple and they've done great work, and I would recommend that you get a hold of the 7 Principles of a Successful Marriage, and 8 Dates is a good one as well that they've written. Anything that helps you to connect and have conversations and communication about we. So I really enjoyed that. So their approach, the atonement, attunement, and attachment, It's not about sweeping the affair under the rug, not at all. In fact, it's about putting it on the table and confronting the pain head on, healing together, and using the process to create stronger, more connected relationship than ever before. So in some ways, um, it's treating the affair as a catalyst for a whole new, more uh, connected and 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 close and really genuine relationship. So it's important to remember, though, that healing does take time. Um, it isn't easy and it is painful, but there is hope for couples committed to working it through, and it can be worked through. The point is to see each other as allies in establishing this new relationship rather than in opposition to each other or as enemies or look what you did, a victim, look what you did to me. So there's a need for the different phases, but then you need to both stand side by side as allies of your marriage, allies of your relationship, allies of recreating. And actually, it's role models for your children how to do this. The Gottmans and Gay and Katie Hendricks as well, they're two lots of relationship experts, and they show with their relationship, long-standing, really good, connected relationship, that with the right tools and guidance, couples can not only heal from infidelity, but also emerge from the experience with a more secure, intimate, and fulfilling relationship. And that's for sure. I've seen it happen. And you might want to consider seeking the help of a relationship therapist yourself. So it can be the beginning of something new and something more profound. So I hope that you find that helpful and useful. If you did, like the video and subscribe, and you'll find follow-up videos, because I saw many amazing therapists last week, and I have lots to share now. Well, I always have lots to share, to be fair. So subscribe and like, and I'll see you in other videos. And good luck with rebuilding that relationship. Bye for now.